Oh, so let's get into this.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're looking at something really deep, often quite invisible. It's that quiet moment, maybe when you're a kid, like 6, 7 years old, and you see a parent really falling apart. Maybe it's, addiction, anger, maybe just this overwhelming silence, like deep grief. And something inside just clicks. It's almost primal, this ceiling that just rushes in. Okay, if I don't hold this together, everything falls apart.
Yeah.
So that little kid basically decides, I have to be the grown-up now. Decades too soon, obviously.
Right. And the world often rewards this, doesn't it? That's the tricky part.
Exactly. That's the invisible compliment we talk about. People say, oh, what a mature child.
Yeah.
So responsible, so strong. But you have to ask, what's the real cost of earning that kind of praise? That's what we're diving deep into today. It's sort of hidden grief, the patterns left behind when you grew up way too fast.
Absolutely. And this isn't just like a sad story. It's a specific psychological pattern. So our mission really for this deep dive is to map that out. We want to define what psychologists call parentification and really understand how those survival skills from childhood, how they show up later, how they become roadblocks, really, to feeling good about yourself, to having healthy relationships. You need to see the pattern to break it.
Okay, so let's start right there. Parentification. That's the key term.
Yes.
It's that fundamental role swap, right? The child essentially becomes the caregiver.
That's it. They might be the peacekeeper mediating fights, or the parent's little therapist, maybe even their protector in some situations. It's a complete reversal of how things should be.
And you mentioned there were different kinds. That seems important.
Oh, definitely. There's what we call instrumental parentification. That's maybe more concrete, the child doing the cooking, cleaning, managing money, because the parent just can't. But then there's emotional parentification. And that one often gets deeper. That's the child managing the parent's moods, soaking up their anxiety, being their main confidant. They become the adult's emotional sponge, essentially.
Wow, yeah. That distinction feels really key.
Yeah.
Because it's that emotional weight, isn't it, that really starts to rewire how you operate.
Precisely. If you're constantly on edge, waiting for the next blow up or the next depressive episode, your whole system shifts into high alert.
Hypervigilance.
That's the one. And it's not just being mentally watchful, it's physiological.
Yeah.
Your brain learns deep down that the world, especially the people meant to keep you safe, they're unpredictable. So you learn to walk on eggshells, you get incredibly good at reading micro expressions, sensing tension, trying to smooth things over before they explode. You're always sort of braced.
And think about what that teaches a child about love. It becomes this transaction, almost like an unspoken deal. Okay, I'll be good, I'll be quiet, I'll keep the peace.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, I'll get some safety back or just, less chaos for a bit.
Exactly. Love gets tied to performance, and you learn really fast that your own needs, your kid needs, like wanting to play or being upset or needing comfort, those are risky.
Yeah, they might rock the boat.
Right. They're dangerous. But the adult's needs, their feelings, their problems, those feel incredibly urgent. Life or death urgent sometimes.
So the actual child, the authentic self, kind of fades into the background.
Yeah.
And you build this persona, this character you need to be just to get by.
That's the mask. The performance mask. You become the good kid, the quiet achiever at school, the friend everyone turns to for advice, the one who never seems to need anything themselves. And you wear it so well for so long.
You forget it's a mask.
You absolutely forget. You start to believe this is just who I am. I'm strong. I'm capable. I don't need much.
But that child you had to bury, the one who was scared, who needed someone to step in, that part doesn't just vanish, does it?
Not at all. It's still there, often driving things from behind the scenes. And that buried part, that silent scream of, why didn't anyone protect me? That translates into very real adult issues.
Okay, so what does that look like? What are the symptoms in adulthood?
Well, you see things rooted in complex trauma, really. A big one is hyperindependence, just this fierce refusal to ask for help, pushing people away, especially when intimacy starts to feel vulnerable. Because deep down, the lesson was relying on someone equals getting hurt or let down. Safety lies in total self-sufficiency.
But hang on, isn't being independent a good thing? Like, how do you tell the difference between healthy independence and this fear-based kind?
That's a great question. It comes down to the why and the feeling. Healthy independence is a choice. You can rely on others. You just might choose not to sometimes. Hyper-independence feels like a compulsion. The thought of asking for help, of being indebted, of appearing weak. It can cause genuine physical anxiety, even panic for some. They'd rather collapse under the weight than let someone else carry even a small part of it.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Another huge one is tying your worth entirely to productivity. that need to constantly be doing, achieving, fixing, managing.
Because that's how you earned your keep as a kid.
Exactly. You earn safety or maybe just less negativity by being useful, by performing. Right. So resting feels terrifying, not just lazy, but fundamentally unsafe. Like if you stop being worthy of love or even existence.
Wow. And you mentioned emotional numbness too. Feeling numb even when good things are happening.
Yeah, it's incredibly common. Because real joy, vulnerability, deep peace, these feelings are unfamiliar territory. The nervous system learned that stability was temporary, maybe even a trap. So when happiness comes, there's this background hum of anxiety, like you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You can't fully relax into it because it feels suspicious, maybe even dangerous.
Which brings us right back to the nervous system, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If that early chaos, that constant tension becomes your normal.
It becomes your baseline. Your whole body, your brain, it's all calibrated for crisis management. It learned that's the default state of the world.
I sometimes think of it like your nervous system is a car that learned to idle really, really high. Like revving at 70 miles per hour, even when it's parked.
That's a perfect analogy.
So when you actually try to slow down, put it in neutral, it doesn't feel like relief. It feels wrong.
Yeah.
Like the engine's gonna stall. Stillness feels alien. Peace feels unsettling. And real unconditional love, that feels like a debt you haven't figured out how to repay yet.
Which leads to the big question listeners might have. Why? Why would a kid take this on? Why not just be a kid?
Yeah.
And the answer is just biology. It's about attachment. A child's need for connection to their caregiver is paramount. They will instinctively do anything to maintain that bond, even if it means sacrificing their own needs, their own self. It's not weakness. It's actually a form of profound, if tragic, intelligence. How do I survive this? By becoming essential.
And that's the devastating irony, isn't it? Yeah. The very thing that saved you back then becomes the cage you live in now.
Precisely. What saved you then imprisons you now. You end up as this high-achieving adult, maybe successful on the outside.
Right. But inside, there's still this neglected kid pulling the levers.
Yeah.
Overworking to prove you're worthy, staying quiet in relationships to avoid conflict because conflict felt like annihilation back then. And underneath all that coping, there's usually this deep, often unconscious fantasy, a hope.
What kind of fantasy?
The fantasy that someone finally will see through the act. They'll notice you're not really that strong, that you're exhausted, and they'll give you permission to just collapse, to fall apart and be held safely without judgment.
Wow.
That longing, that belongs to the child who never got that safety, never got to just be held.
Okay, so if someone listening recognizes themselves in this, deeply recognizes themselves, what's the first step? Where do you even begin?
The very first step before fixing anything is just witnessing, seeing it clearly, because we become experts at downplaying it.
Oh, yeah. The self-gaslighting. It wasn't that bad. Other people had it way worse. I turned out fine, didn't I? Exactly. But that fine, as the sources really highlight, it's often just the most polished version of the mask.
Yeah.
Until you stop minimizing your own childhood experience, you're kind of stuck reenacting it.
And the adult result of that minimizing is what?
You become the adult who says sorry for crying, who physically flinches if someone gives them a real compliment, who thinks burnout is just the price of success. You live life holding your breath, basically, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
So the permission to exhale, to be real, it has to come from you, the adult, looking back. Because those original adults, they're not coming back to fix it.
No, they're not. The adult you are now has to become the rescuer for that inner child. It means consciously turning towards that younger self you had to leave behind. It's about, maybe metaphorically, holding their hand and finally saying the words they needed to hear. That wasn't okay. That wasn't your fault. You were just a kid, and that was way too much. You can rest now. I've got this.
And that process, that turning towards, that's really shadow work, isn't it? It's not about finding some quick fix or forcing positivity.
Not at all. It's about making contact with the parts you had to disown. And crucially, allowing the feelings that got frozen back then to finally thaw and move through you.
The grief, the rage, the sadness.
All of it. The profound sorrow for the lost childhood, the anger about the unfair burden, the deep ache of unmet needs, feeling those things now. That's not reopening a wound, it's finally cleaning it out.
I like how you put that, grief as proof of healing. When those tears finally come, or that anger surfaces, it means your system is starting to believe it's actually safe enough now to feel the truth of what happened then.
Exactly. And these patterns, they don't just live in the past. They show up in everyday life, especially in relationships, often quite subtly.
How so? Like, what are some examples?
Well, think about friendships. Are you the go-to therapist for everyone, the one dishing out amazing advice, understanding everyone else's problems?
But nobody really knows what's going on with you.
Precisely. Or being praised constantly for your independence while inside you're absolutely terrified of asking for anything, of being seen as needy or a burden.
Or that overfunctioning in relationships you mentioned earlier. Always fixing, planning, managing, smoothing things over for your partner or friend.
Yes. Pouring and pouring energy outwards. And then feeling this deep, simmering resentment because you feel completely drained and unseen despite all your efforts.
Right, because the effort is the mask, not the real you asking for connection.
And here's the most important reframe, I think, for anyone listening. These behaviors, the fixing, the hyper-independence, the performance, they are not your personality. They are not who you are fundamentally.
Your coping strategies.
Learned coping strategies, conditioned responses, and the good news, because they were learned.
They can be unlearned.
They absolutely can. But, and this is the key, that unlearning only really starts when you stop praising your own strength, stop idolizing the mask, and start giving some space and honor to the wounds underneath it.
Okay, so how do we start that? Practically speaking, is there a tool, a question we can use?
There is. It requires creating a bit of quiet space, turning inwards, and asking that inner child part of you a very direct question. What did you need back then that you never, ever got?
And the answers won't be like complicated adult solutions.
No, exactly. They'll be simple, devastatingly simple. Things like, I needed someone to say it wasn't my fault, or I just needed to be allowed to play, to be silly, to make mistakes without the world ending, to rest.
And the work is to start giving those simple things to yourself now. Slowly, gently.
Yes. Listening to that small voice and starting deliberately to meet those fundamental needs in your current adult life. That's how you stop the past from constantly replaying.
It reminds me of that Carl Jung quote, something about consciousness and pain.
Oh, yes. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Healing this stuff is painful because you're finally letting yourself become conscious of what was lost, what you had to sacrifice. But the goal isn't to become some perfect new person. It's more like remembering.
Remembering who you were.
Remembering who you were before you learned who you had to be to survive.
So wrapping this up.
Yeah.
If this deep dive has resonated, if you hear your story in this, what's the takeaway? What's the path forward?
I think the core message is self-compassion, first and foremost.
Right. Take a breath. Know that your maturity back then, that wasn't the issue. The issue was you had no choice. You were forced into that role way too early. But now, as an adult, looking back with this awareness, now you do have a choice.
Yes.
You can choose differently. You can choose softness over constant strength. You can choose rest, even when it feels unproductive. You can start prioritizing your own feelings instead of always managing everyone else's.
And know that as you do this, there will absolutely be days you feel really small again. Overwhelmed, maybe just childlike. That's not regression.
It's healing.
It's healing. It means that inner child feels safe enough to finally come forward. Let them have the tears they couldn't cry then. Let them feel the feelings they had to suppress. You're not broken. You're actually becoming more whole. You're finally getting the chance to grow up, but this time in a way that honors you.
Yeah.
You didn't get the childhood you deserve, that's true. But you still have your future. And this time you get to write it free from the mask. Every messy, beautiful, authentic chapter.